No more excuses. A federal judge in San Diego scolds government attorneys for missing today's deadline to reunite young immigrant children with their families and outlines what he expects going forward.
I told them I'm not letting go of her.
Children, some separated from their parents and some not, are fending for themselves in immigration court. And in Thailand, 12 boys will be reunited with their families following a dangerous rescue from a flooded cave complex. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. No more excuses. The message from a federal judge in San Diego today telling the Trump administration he expects his deadlines to reunite migrant children with their parents met. The California Report's John Sepulveda was in today's hearing.
Federal Judge Dana Sabra essentially told the federal government three things. First, he wants them to stop using DNA tests. He says they're cumbersome, they're costly, and in fact, they can take anywhere between 13 to 21 days to get results and establish that parents are related to their children. The second thing that he told the government was quite simply he wants to know exact reasons for why reunification can't happen. Up until this point, the government has used really broad terms when trying to explain why some of these reunifications are taking so long. The third thing, Judge Sabra said he doesn't want any more excuses. He says it is time for the government to make this happen, that the government has had plenty of time, that they were aware of the deadlines, and that since they were the ones who separated the children, they should be the ones who can quickly reunify them. Now, there were two facts that came out of this hearing today that really caught my ear. The first is that a 3-year-old child, which had been detained, whose parents were unknown, could be, in fact, a U.S. citizen. This was according to the government's own admission in court. The second thing is that 12 parents of children have already been deported to their home countries, and it's very unclear at this point how they will be reunited with their children, all of whom are under the age of 5. In front of the federal courthouse in San Diego, I'm John Sepulveda, KPBS News.
Since the Trump administration started separating immigrant families who are accused of crossing into the U.S. illegally, children have been appearing alone in immigration court without their parents and without lawyers.
During a recent visit to an immigration courtroom in Phoenix, I witnessed several children go before a judge, and toward the end of a hearing saw a 1-year-old go before a judge for his immigration case. The 1-year-old was pretty calm. He was dressed in a green button-up shirt. He had dress shoes at first, and at some point they came off because he was in socks by the time he saw the judge.
KPBS Frontiers reporter Jean Guerrero says some kids have had to appear in court alone, even though they were never separated from their families.
Noah Lopez came to the U.S. from Guatemala with his 5-year-old daughter, Dailin, fleeing death threats. After crossing the border through Tecate, Lopez says officials tried to separate him from Dailin, but that he clung to her.
I told them I'm not letting go of her.
The two were released together on parole, but the Department of Justice divided their court cases. Dailin had to appear in San Diego Immigration Court in May, alone. Her dad says when they put the headphones on her so she could hear the translator relate what the judge was saying, she broke down in tears. The judge granted special permission for the dad to be brought in to calm her down.
She was crying and crying and crying, and I said, calm down, they're not going to hurt you. And she said, they're going to put me in jail. And I said, don't worry, nothing is going to happen to you.
His attorney, Matt Holt, says he's trying to consolidate their cases, but that in the meantime, it's creating a lot of unnecessary work, stress, and inefficiencies. Attorneys say the government is increasingly separating cases like this. The Department of Justice did not respond to a request for comment to explain why. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
County officials say the West Fire that broke out last week amid a record-setting heat destroyed 36 homes and 29 other buildings. It started Friday morning on the south side of Interstate 8 in the Cleveland National Forest and spread quickly to surrounding neighborhoods. As of this morning, the fire was mostly contained, but CAL FIRE says crews will be in the area throughout the weekend, watching for any flare-ups. The San Diego City Council is considering adding more transitional storage sites to help people who are homeless. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says this comes as the city is still working to fill a recently opened storage site.
This storage center on 16th Street securely holds more than 400 people's belongings. It was so in demand that it had a waiting list for people to get in. In response, a similar storage facility opened near 20th and Commercial Street. This one can accommodate up to 500 people. After being open for nearly a month, 127 bins have been taken here. The city says a gradual increase of clients will ensure long-term success. And now the San Diego City Council is debating whether to add more transitional storage sites. Council members have been working to come up with possible locations. Among them are Golden Hall, which is downtown and owned by the city, and the Chargers' old practice facility on Murphy Canyon Road, which is also owned by the city. A spokesman for San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer says the mayor is supportive of additional storage opportunities and says transitional storage sites get personal belongings off of streets and help people get back on their feet. The 20th Street storage facility is costing the city and Housing Commission $1.4 million to keep open for a year. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
There was no action taken during today's city council meeting, but council member David Alvarez wants city staffers to vet each proposed storage site to see if they're feasible. The general in charge of the 1st Marine Division at Camp Pendleton faces sanctions after a new report questions the way he used his personal aid while in Iraq. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
The Inspector General's Office of the Pentagon said Brigadier General Rick Uribe misused his subordinate, requiring the aide to write personal letters, bring him meals, and pick up his laundry, while the general led U.S. forces in Iraq from May 2016 to June 2017. According to the report, the aide told the Inspector General's office that I only did personal matters for the general in Iraq. The unnamed Marine officer performed a wide range of personal tasks, standing next to gym equipment to hold it for the general. The aide changed the general's bed sheets. When they traveled, the aide carried a bag of snacks and personal items. The aide was also asked to handle the printing and sale of a unit T-shirt and spent hours locating a particular toothpaste preferred by the general. The Inspector General's office concluded Uribe violated joint ethics regulation and recommended his superiors take action. The acts are considered personal tasks outside the scope of the aide's official duties. In his response, Uribe attributed some of the requests to the hurried pace of operations in Iraq. The Marines were working with the Iraqi army to retake Fallujah. Prior to Iraq, Uribe headed the Marine Corps' Inspector General office. Now he leads the 1st Marine Division at Pendleton. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Hate crimes are on the rise in California. New numbers from the State Attorney General's office show overall hate crimes increased by 17% last year. Religious-based hate crimes accounted for the biggest jump. Anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic, and anti-Jewish hate crimes rose 21%, while those involving sexual orientation jumped nearly 19%. Of all the hate crimes reported last year, 383 were prosecuted. The plan to split California into 3 separate states may land in the state Supreme Court. Opponents are asking the court to pull the measure from the November ballot. Voters are set to decide whether to break the state into Northern California, California, and Southern California, with Southern California including San Diego stretching from Fresno to the southern border. Advocates of the split say California is too large and diverse to effectively govern. But the lawsuit filed by Planning and Conservation League argues the measure is an abuse of the ballot system. State farming advocates are slamming a proposal by water officials to divert more water to salmon populations. The plan was announced Friday by the State Water Resources Control Board and would increase water flows in the San Joaquin River system. Water officials say the change is necessary to avoid an ecological disaster and save a dwindling salmon population. State farming and water groups are calling for a better balance between water supplies for both fish and agriculture.
We need to work to find a way to achieve our fisheries goals while also sustaining our rural communities. And to do that, we look at ways where the local community can work on habitat, where they can provide improved or enhanced management of invasive species, where they can be part of the solution and not just a target of the regulation.
Farm Bureau members say they will be making their case to the Water Board during public comment sessions. Officials are expected to finalize the plan next month. Industry leaders say water prices have tripled for California growers in the last decades. Still, crop values last year rose by $28 million, bringing it to $1.8 billion. These numbers come from the San Diego County Farm Bureau. Its executive director, Eric Larson, says this growth may not be sustainable without addressing the increasing water cost and shrinking workforce.
In the worst case scenario, you'd get to a point where there's just nobody to pick the fruit. And that has happened in certain parts of the country. Here, the fruit and the vegetables still all get harvested, but maybe not at the prime time. But what's happening is folks kind of are cannibalizing each other's workforces. So someone raises their wages, workers move over to this farm, and it goes back and forth. That's not a healthy situation to have. So at this point in time, farmers are figuring it out, but we're getting really close to that tipping point where farmers have to make some pretty drastic decisions about what they grow or whether or not they're going to be able to stay in business. Americans just aren't raising their children to be farm workers. So we need foreign-born workers to keep these crops producing. We've done nothing in this country to allow for new guest workers for several decades, and so the pool of farm workers is shrinking as folks age out of the industry. And with no new supply of workers, we have the pool shrinks, and it's getting more and more difficult for farmers to find help. What we really need is for Congress and the President to decide this is an important issue. Pay attention to it. We need them to do two things. One, create a visa program so the farm workers we have here now who have skills, are running our farms and doing very good work, can get a visa to remain here and do the work that they're doing. Secondarily, we need a program where, if the farm community can quantify how many farm workers are needed, create a guest worker program where other workers who are not in this country now can get a visa to come here either on a temporary or maybe a 2 or 3 year basis to work in agriculture and come here and do that as well. So that's what we're asking for. We're not asking for wholesale opening of the borders, but we think it makes sense to know who's here. We think it makes sense for our farm workers to have visas, work visas, to allow them to be here. And we wish that in Washington, D.C., they agreed with us.
California will spend millions of dollars in coming years to safeguard future elections from outside security threats. Secretary of State Alex Padilla says California's election process was not compromised by foreign hackers during the 2016 election, but to make sure future elections are secure, Governor Brown budgeted $134 million to modernize county voting systems. Counties that want to upgrade their system will get a 50% reimbursement from the state. All equipment must maintain automated as well as manual election processes.
We require paper ballots. It's important for the public to understand. We require paper ballots and a voter verified paper trail. We require that all these systems that we use for voting are not connected to the internet. So we make it impossible to systematically hack or rig an election.
The Secretary of State's office also received $3 million of additional funding to establish 2 new state offices that will monitor potential security threats against future elections. Well, all 12 boys and their soccer coach have been successfully rescued from a cave in Thailand. The team became trapped 18 days ago after the cave system they were exploring flooded during heavy rains. Each of the boys were guided out of the cave by a pair of experienced divers. Experts say the conditions of the dive were extreme, due in part to the low visibility and the tiny spaces divers had to maneuver. Doctors say the effects of such an ordeal can be lasting.
It could be depression, anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress disorders, perhaps conduct problems, and substance abuse. Now, all these are mental health problems that have very treatable interventions for them. So it's important that the children, as they go outside, are screened over time and receive mental health interventions that are targeted to the symptoms and conditions that they develop.
The International Soccer Federation, FIFA, has invited the boys to attend the World Cup final in Russia this Sunday. But doctors treating the boys say it will be too soon for them to make the trip.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the battle begins. President Trump's Supreme Court nominee heads to Capitol Hill to win over senators. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Cryptocurrency, a global payment system for millions, but a riddle for others. Marketplace's Molly Wood explains the future of Bitcoin and what the Internet of Agreement means.
I'm Molly Wood, host of Marketplace Tech, here to answer 5 questions about Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is an encrypted digital currency. It's sometimes called a cryptocurrency, and it is a global payment system. But it's built on top of this technology called blockchain, which is essentially a virtual ledger that keeps track of every transaction. And the ledger is publicly distributed. So in theory, anyone can track the transactions to verify that they're real. Who has Bitcoin? It's a little hard to estimate how many people do own Bitcoin because when you own it, it's assigned to your digital Bitcoin address, which is really just like an encryption key. And one person can have several addresses. The best guess is that between 2 to 4 million people own at least some fraction of Bitcoin, maybe as high as 15 million people. Why is Bitcoin so volatile? One reason might be because so few people control so much. Any move by one of these Bitcoin whales can have a huge impact on supply and price. It is utterly unregulated and has no real infrastructure to speak of. How real is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is real as a financial asset because people say it is. But as a cryptocurrency, it's real because there is a finite number of Bitcoin, and there's a record of each one that's created or mined. So compared to something like a $100 bill, which does have a serial number but can disappear for years, Bitcoin's actually pretty real. What's the future of cryptocurrency? The future is really less about Bitcoin or any individual currency and more about this decentralized, computerized ledger technology. It requires no middleman, no gatekeeper, just computerized, traceable, verifiable transactions. And that is something that's actually sometimes called the Internet of Agreements. I'm Molly Wood. For more on Bitcoin and all kinds of tech topics, subscribe to Marketplace Tech.
Well, these clouds are sticking around and ushering in a chance of showers in part of the county for the next few days. Erin Calandra has the full forecast.
Perhaps you noticed a couple of showers or storms around your house today. Well, you certainly would not be alone. It is now monsoon season. We're seeing some widespread showers and storms popping up across San Diego County. Not everyone is going to see any kind of precipitation, but certainly some people are seeing some wet weather. Here is the radar, pretty active over the last several hours. It's really hit or miss, though, not necessarily widespread. And that's the case for the whole Southwest. Phoenix is getting some heavy downpours. They had some last night, pretty violent storms with gusty winds, and we are seeing some of that isolated here across San Diego County. For tonight, it's going to be drier in the metro area, but that humidity is increasing, so 72 for the temperature. Add in the humidity, it's going to feel warmer than that. We're still going to see a couple of showers and storms lingering tonight, mainly in the mountains, Mount Laguna, and also spots of the interior areas. But really along the coast, we expect it to stay mainly dry. Chula Vista tonight at 69, Oceanside at 69, and Borrego Springs at 79 degrees. Tomorrow, it's going to be kind of like today, but not as widespread. Fewer people will see showers, but we still have that band of green there, which means perhaps pack the umbrella. Keep it with you. We could see a couple of showers and storms popping up in Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna, San Diego, and places in between. Notice still lots of sunshine, though, because it will remain mainly a sunny day. Borrego Springs at 100 and San Diego coming in at 80 degrees. That's still above average. We should be at 74. So we're still pretty warm, not as hot as it was last week. Along the coast, we're going to stay pretty steady in the low 80s this whole week. Could see some clouds and sunshine any day, and it will become a bit foggier for the weekend to start off, and then, of course, sunnier through the afternoon. Inland, expect to see showers and storms on Wednesday, and then drier, sunny, temperatures in the 80s, getting a bit cooler by Sunday. And in the mountains, pretty much any day through Friday, you could see a shower or storm. Temperatures will be in the upper 70s to low 80s, and the deserts are staying in the triple double digits. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Ebony, back to you.
It's one of the easiest things to follow at a baseball game when fans go up and down for a human wave. KQED's Adam Grossberg and Olivia Allen Price introduce us to the man behind the wave. And believe it or not everyone is a fan.
So what's the wave?
I love the wave.
I love the wave.
Somebody gets it started somewhere.
Wait, let's go all the way around. And I wait, and I wait, and I wait.
Throw your hands up and scream a lot.
It makes me feel good, like I'm actually liking the game.
Raise your hands for a man who goes by Crazy George. He claims to have introduced this at a 1981 baseball game.
Where's the wave?
That's it.
This is Crazy George! This is Crazy George! Are you ready?
Ready.
My name is Crazy George. I'm a professional cheerleader. I've been cheering for a living for over 40 years. And that's what I say. I say, I don't claim to invent the wave. I did invent the wave. Yes, after 40 years of screaming a lot, it has taken a toll. Yeah, it was October 15th, 1981. I was standing right over there. Nobody had ever saw it before.
October 15, 1981. More than 47,000 fans at the Oakland A's.
And it was an important game. It was the playoff game. It's against the Yankees. And so we had to have something special. So I knew what I wanted, the wave idea. So, fifth inning, I finally realized I'm going to have to try it. We were desperate. We had a run scored yet. It was getting really tense. And I started it. I was either here or here, but I can't remember. I said, on three, you're standing, then you guys, and went there, then there, and then there, and then there. And it went down about a quarter of the way around and died about 7 sections down. Now, 47,000 fans knew what I wanted. I said, we're gonna do it again. It swept around behind home plate, came around the outfield, came down. It gets to here. I forgot to tell them I wanted to keep going. They all just stood up in unison, looked at me and applauded. I couldn't believe it. When it gets back, you keep it going. That's the idea. Of course, nobody ever saw that before. I said, we're going to do it again. So here it goes. It swept down first base, around that side, out into the outfield, to center field, into left field, and it came back, and it gained power. And it's like a locomotive coming in, whoa, and it kept going, and going.
Crescendo rising here. That's amazing. I've never seen anything like this. As far as the vociferous aspect of the crowd, well, nothing's going on in the field.
I'm in the fans under the direction of Crazy George out here having themselves a good evening and enjoying baseball, enjoying the Coliseum, and not hurting anybody.
All at once, everybody was calling it the wave. I don't know how. I never named it. I never thought about it. And great, it's a wave, and that's what they call it, the wave. First wave in history, and it was fabulous.
Now the next question is just how inhibiting this will be, whatever it is.
It's an annoyance sometimes, kind of distracts from the game.
I think it's silly, especially in a baseball game.
Because everybody's paying attention to the wave and not to the game.
I'm not bothered by watching the wave go around, see if it's my turn to get up and whoo-ha.
Top 10 reasons why real fans go to the stick. No wave.
It's Oakland. It's always been like that. We don't do the wave here. We're better than that. We don't have a wave. We got other things.
You say, oh, it disrupts the game. Yeah, for 1/2 a second, people are standing up. Well, if you do the wave with them, you're standing, you can see the same action. I don't know if I can. It's like trying to get a Republican and a Democrat to agree on something. I have fun, and I probably have more fun than they have in a game. So if they want to have fun at the game, start doing the wave. But if you want to just sit and pout, go ahead. I don't get upset at the hot dog vendor or the wave because I want a hot dog and I want to have fun.
Well, that fun story comes to us from KQED's Bay Curious. You can read more about the history of the wave at kqed.org.
We did a good job.
A happy ending for a family of burrowing owls. They were treated at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park for a dangerous parasite infection. The zoo teamed up with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to provide the care. Many were in critical condition.
We found all of the birds had some degree of flea infestation. 2 of the adults are anemic from the fleas, 1 severely so. And that was what prompted us to administer more intense medical care than just something we could do burrow side.
It took about a month of treatment before the veterinarian team could release the owls back into their native habitat. Burrowing owls are becoming increasingly rare here in San Diego County. Now, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Millions of dollars are now pouring into programs to help homeless people find permanent housing. So why are landlords saying no? And on Midday Edition, could California's Environmental Quality Act be contributing to the housing crisis? Join Maureen Cavanaugh for that story and more at noon. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.